Your attention, please. Thank you. Good morning, Lancers, and welcome to Liberty's annual Veterans Day celebration assembly. To begin today's celebration, please silence all cell phones and put them away during the assembly as we show our Lancer pride to everyone being recognized today. You will notice a chair in the middle of the floor with the ropes around it. This chair represents our soldiers who are prisoners of war, missing in action, and veterans who have passed away. To honor these brave men and women, please stand, and gentlemen, please remove your hats and join me in a moment of silence. After the moment of silence, please remain standing as our Liberty Air Force Junior ROTC presents the colors and Mr. Henning performs the national anthem. I will let you know when to sit. Our moment of silence begins now. Thank you. Please be seated. The Webster Dictionary defines liberty as the quality or state of being free. Let me repeat that. The quality or state of being free. The name of our school and our existence within this school is defined by freedom. We are free because of the brave men and women who have fought within and outside of our borders to preserve liberty. The name of our school and your attendance at this school is more than just a name that was given. Liberty. It is based on the freedoms that we enjoy every single day due to those that preserve our liberties. Before school started today, Student Council handed out necklaces. Red necklaces represent direct family members of yours that have or are currently serving in the military. Blue necklaces represent extended family members who have or are currently serving in the military. And silver necklaces represent family, friends, or neighbors who have or are currently serving in our military. To see the impact that our military has on our school, would everyone who has a red necklace please stand and remain standing? Now, would everyone who has a blue necklace please stand and also remain standing? Finally, will those that are wearing a silver necklace please stand and remain standing? As you can see, as you look around, you can see the tremendous impact that our military has on our school, Liberty. Thank you. Please be seated. We have Liberty staff members whose child or children, spouse, or they themselves are either currently serving in the military or they have served in the past. We would like to recognize all of them for their service to our country and for the liberty they have provided to all of us. Please applaud after each person is recognized. We will recognize our staff in this order. We will begin with Sandy Cook. Her husband, Tom, served for over 21 years in the Air Force and finished with the rank of Technical Sergeant. Thank you, Sandy. Next is Katina Dahl. Katina's husband, Eric, served for over 21 years in the Army and finished with the rank of First Sergeant. Next is Margot Downing. Margot served for 6 months in the Army and finished with the rank of Private First Class. Next is Tom Fritz. His wife, Jennifer, is in her 25th year in the Air Force serving as Colonel, and he himself served in the Army for 6 years, finishing as a specialist. Next is our own Sean Heading. Sean retired just this year as a staff sergeant with 16 years of service in the Army. Next is Holly Hopkins. Her husband, Kevin, served for 24 years in the Air Force, finishing as a lieutenant colonel. Next is our own Amanda Hostler. She served for 4 years in the Air Force and finished as a senior airman. Next is Erica Lingle. Her husband served for 22 years in the Air Force and finished with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Next is Charlotte Packard. Her husband, Mark, served for 14 years in the Air Force and finished as a captain, and her son, Grant, also served for 4 years in the Air Force and finished as a captain. Next is our own J.D. Playa. He served for 4 years in the Army and finished as a sergeant. Next is Ashley Weber. Her husband, Christopher, served 2 years in the Marines and finished with the rank of colonel. Next is Natalie Ritchie. Her husband, Kevin Sr., served for 24 years in the Air Force and finished as a Master Sergeant. Natalie's son, Kevin Jr., also served in the Air Force for 9 years and finished with the rank of Staff Sergeant. Finally, I know there's more. Finally, her son-in-law, Jose, is serving in the Air National Guard as a Staff Sergeant. Next is Melissa Shetler. Her husband, Jerry, served 27 years in the Air Force and finished as a colonel. Next is our own Nadia Sikola. She served 4 years in the Air Force and finished as a senior airman, while her husband, Alan, also served 4 years in the Air Force and finished as a senior airman. Our final staff member today is Cindy Wenzel. Her husband, Jeff, served for nearly 30 years in the Air Force and finished as a colonel. Lancers, let's give all our recipients one more round of applause. Now our chamber singers will perform No Mark.
Thank you. A word about today's selection before we begin. No Mark comes to us from a Colorado composer and a Colorado poet. This particular poem talks about memorials, markings that designate a place where somebody has died. Some are certain famous battlefields or other historical landmarks. But the poet and the composer wanted to muse a little bit on what happens when somebody dies in a place where there is no mark to be left, specifically an airman who is killed over the ocean, and kind of talk about how they might memorialize that person. Chamber Singers is happy to perform for you this morning. Thank you.
Jones was killed. Scrabble grows and sassafras. importance of serving in the military and their experience. This year, our guest speaker is special because this morning our speaker is one of our faculty members, Mr. Ivan Chambers. Mr. Chambers served 13 years in the United States Air Force and ended with the rank of major. He served as an aircraft maintenance officer and finished up as an assistant athletic director. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Lancer welcome to Mr. Ivan Chambers.
Thank you, Nick, for that kind introduction. Good morning. First of all, I want to commend all of you for listening to Mr. T and putting your cell phones away. I think this is the best I've ever seen you guys paying attention during the assembly, so hats off to you right now for that. It's an honor for me to be invited to speak with you today. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. You might think that that was some great American that spoke those words, but it's actually an Irishman that some of you have probably never heard of. A guy by the name of John Philpott Curtin. He was a teenager when this nation became a nation in 1776. So, I want you to ask yourself a question. Why are we here this morning? And why do we take the time as a nation to observe a hot national holiday called Veterans Day? First of all, who is a veteran? A veteran is someone that has honorably served in any branch of the military for a minimum of 90 days, but has also served during a time of war. It's been estimated that since the beginning of the Revolutionary War, that over 50 million Americans have served in our military to stand watch and protect and defend our freedom. It is these brave men and women who have spent part of their lives in this country for the past 242 years can be eternally vigilant. There are people out there in this world, believe it or not, that want to take our freedom from us. And without a strong military force, we cannot maintain that freedom. Okay, so here's a little history lesson for you. Here's your teachers. If I get it wrong, forgive me. November 11th, 1918, 100 years ago Sunday, a treaty was signed between the Allies of World War I and Germany that brought an end to the hostilities on the Western Front of World War I. This ceasefire was to take place at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. From that time on, November 11th became known as Armistice Day. And then in 1938, it became a national holiday. In 1954, at the urging of all the military groups, it was renamed Veterans Day. And that's a day that we now celebrate the service of all U.S. military veterans. So that's why we're here today. So, you ask yourself, that's all well and good. So Coach Chambers, what's that got to do with you? Why are you the one that's standing here talking to us today? September 13th, 1985. San Antonio, Texas, Medina Annex, Lackland Air Force Base. I raised my right hand and repeated these following words. I, Ivan Leon Chambers, having been appointed a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which I am about to enter. So help me God. And these veterans up here with me said an oath very similar to that whenever they entered the Air Force, or Army, or Navy, Marines, or Coast Guard. With those 83 words, I made a lifetime commitment to support and defend the freedom and liberty of this great nation against all enemies, whether they're in this country or outside of the country. So Caleb, Sean, Levi, Nate, Nika, Tyler, Aaron, all of you seniors, I spent the next almost 13 years, even though you were not be born for almost 15 years after that, defending your freedom. Connor, Gus, Chase, Kylie, all you juniors, I made that same commitment to defend your liberty. And for all you sophomores and freshmen out there, as well as all the staff here, yes, including Miss Wenzel, whose husband also made that same commitment. Mr. Sibley, Miss Meacham, Miss Hoyle, and yes, Mr. T. I made that same commitment for you too. For the next almost 13 years, I had the privilege of serving as an officer in the United States Air Force. I had some incredible jobs and great experiences during that time. I could talk for hours about my time in the military, but I don't think Mr. T would appreciate that very much. What I will say that my primary career field, as Nick said, was as an aircraft maintenance officer. I had the privilege of supervising hundreds of highly trained maintenance technicians working on some of the greatest bombers and fighter aircraft in the world. I worked supervising airmen working on the A-7, which at the time was the cover for the stealth fighter, the A-117. That program was so top secret that even though I had a top secret clearance, I didn't even know what I was doing. Didn't even know about the stealth fighter at the time. I also supervised a group of highly skilled civilians doing depot maintenance on B-52 bombers, which has dropped more payload on enemies than any aircraft in the history of the world. I also had the opportunity to work on the munitions and the jets for the F-16 fighter at Homestead Air Force Base. I was also commander of a headquarters squadron, as well as a commander of the 2953rd Combat Logistics Support Squadron, the only captain in the history of the Air Force to fill that slot, which is usually reserved for a lieutenant colonel. That was a group of over 200 airmen that were highly trained to perform battle damage repair on our aircraft during wartime. I was also the aide exec for a major general. I got to travel with him all over the world, to places such as Japan, Korea, Okinawa, the Philippines, Spain, Germany, England, and almost every state of the United States. My last assignment was right here at the Air Force Academy. It was as assistant athletic director in charge of travel for all the intercollegiate athletic teams. When I arrived in Colorado Springs for that assignment in 1992, I knew immediately that Colorado Springs was home. I knew that I didn't want to leave. When we got here, we chose to buy a house in Academy District 20 and specifically targeted Liberty High School for my kids to go to school. So over 26 years now, I've had ties to Liberty. So since I didn't want to leave Colorado Springs, on February 28, 1998, I separated from active duty, walked away from a military career so I could stay here. But that didn't mean I stopped loving this country. At that time, I officially became a veteran, which brings me back to that very first question. Why is it important that we take time to honor our military veterans? As Mr. T alluded to, I think it is very important, not only today, but every day, especially here at Liberty High School, because the name that we have on the front of our school, and that we so proudly wear on our clothing and our athletic uniforms, should have its added awareness of the sacrifices of eternal vigilance made by that 50+ million U.S. veterans who have served in our military defending our freedom. The word liberty itself literally means freedom or independence. It is what over 698,000 American men and women have given their lives in battle to protect. And we often take our liberty for granted. And from time to time, we need to be reminded of the sacrifices made over the last 242 years to keep our nation free by being eternally vigilant. Our forefathers believed that liberty was so important that in 1976, when they got together to write the Declaration of Independence, they included the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." About less than 100 years later, after one of the worst battles during a dark period in our history, when almost 500,000 American soldiers lost their lives during the Civil War, when brother was fighting against brother, President Lincoln looked out over the Gettysburg battlefield and began his address, which at one time he said, "The world will little know, no longer remember what is said here today, but these words," he said, 7 years ago, "our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in what? Liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." And last but not least, every morning, including this morning, we are given the opportunity to say these words when we stand and pledge our allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with what? Liberty and justice for all. I want to leave you with one last thought this morning. As you can tell, I'm very patriotic. I'm very proud of this country. Is this country perfect? No. Even after 242 years, we still have a lot to learn. We have a ways to go. But we're still a young country. Also happen to love country music. So basketball team, that's why our warm-up's going to be country this year. When I entered the Air Force in 1985, there was a particular country song that became very popular and even won 2 Grammy Awards that year, including the Best Country Song for 1985. I'd like to finish my thoughts today by sharing with you the words of that song and then giving you the opportunity to join in. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my God above to be living here today, cause that flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. From the lakes of Minnesota to the halls of liberty, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA, well, there's pride in every American's heart, and it's time to stand and say, stand up and join me.
guys. You were great.
Mr. Chambers, in recognition of your 13 years of service to our country, we would like to show you our gratitude by presenting you with this token of our appreciation. Thank you, sir, for your remarks today and your contributions to ensure our freedom. Our own Liberty Wind Ensemble will now play the Armed Forces Medley. When you hear the medley that represents a family member, a family friend, or neighbor, please stand. Thank you, Wayne Ensemble, for always doing an amazing job. During lunch today, Student Council will have thank you cards that you can complete to thank a veteran for his or her service to our country. All the cards that are completed today will be sent to our local Veterans Hospital so they can read the love and support from our Lancers. Please take 2 minutes of your time to write a card to thank our veterans. Before we leave today, the color guide will perform their retreat. Once the retreat has ended, you will head back to your first block class. Lancers, please stand for the Air Force ROTC retreat. Thank you, Lancers. You're dismissed.